I love that because I feel like the big thing that you just said that a lot of people do not do and don't pay attention to is the research phase. Mm-hmm. It's the time to understand the audience. It's the time to understand the market. It's the time to understand what you're actually offering and putting out to the world. And I love that you've actually taken the time to say, okay, this is what this looks like. This is what this entails, and that background. Yes. But even with all that research and the money, how are you not afraid?
I'm terrified.
She said, girl, I didn't say I wasn't afraid. When did I tell you that? Like, did you miss that? Like, I thought it was clear.
Anna, I'm so scared.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Podcast Trapper. I'm your host, Anna Agogo, founder of Black Pod Collective, Black Pod Festival, and Adode Media. Yep, all the things. And as you know, here on The Podcast Trapper, I talk about my experience within the podcast space, but we recently launched a new segment, how they built this. And so this week, I am super excited to have somebody that I've looked up to for a minute, like a little background, which I just shared with her recently. And I know you're probably like, Anna, just get to it and show us who it is. You gonna wait, okay? And I remember almost applying for a job at her company before I started Adode Media. Like, I knew that I wanted to learn from her, and she was just killing it. Like, she still is killing it. And so that's to kind of tell you something, because I promise you there's been never, ever been another company in podcasting that I'm like, yep, I want to go work there. This was the only place that I was like, you know what? I want to take on a producer role and just glean from her, learn from her, because I want to be great too. And I'm super excited that I get to learn from her still, but in a different capacity as my peer and my good friend. So Michelle, welcome.
Okay, that's just like, I love you so much. Thank you. Like, the best introduction in the world. And literally, like, that whole thing you said about it's the only podcast production company that I would actually want to work for or had wanted to work for. That's something I work hard on. So, like, it means a lot to me. Thank you.
It's apparent. Like, so tell the audience who you are, because, like, I know we can easily get into our bubble of, like, so, girl, let me tell you about. But tell them who you are and, like, your company and all the amazing things. Like, tell them your accolades. Tell them your special sauce.
I do need to get better at that, so I'll practice right now with you. I'm Michelle Khouri. I'm the CEO and founder of FRQNCY Media, which is the company that you were just talking about, and its new sister brand, Recordical, which is a consumer-facing side. So FRQNCY Media is a podcast production company for brands. We say it's for major brands, highly influential individuals, advocacy groups, multinational corporations. Through the FRQNCY Media side, which I founded in 2018, we have produced podcasts for Jane Goodall, Coca-Cola, TurboTax, Valeria Lipovetsky, who's an influencer, and just a bunch of other companies, Spotify, Apple, Diane Von Furstenburg. So we have a lot of experience in telling beautiful, nuanced stories for a wide range of brands.
I just want to be like her when I grow up. I feel like we could just walk away at this point. There's nothing left to be said.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
She just mic dropped on us, like, and that was that. And I still, okay, y'all, I remember when you told me your first client was Coke. Mm-hmm. Like, how is your first client Coke? Like, who does that? Only you would be like, and then I came in like a wrecking ball. You know, like, come on, Michelle. So please walk us through how you were able to build this and get Coke as your very first client.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's kind of the a standard for anybody who wants to grow a business is, number one, I was out there networking. So I don't network as much anymore because I'm doing so much work. But when you're first starting, getting out there, meeting people in the industry, meeting people in a city. So it's not just networking for business, because sometimes that turns people off because you have to, like, be on in business situations. It's literally just like, find your passion, find your people, and people will get to know you for that passion that you have. For me, my passion was audio and art. So I was deeply in the art community. I was going to all these art gallery openings, exhibitions, mural, what are they called? Mural conferences. And then at the same time, because I loved art so much, I launched my own podcast, the Cultured Podcast. So I was like meeting all these people in podcasting at that point, because the second I started producing a podcast, it's all I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was work in audio. And so that's how I started meeting a lot of people. Then I knew I was launching FRQNCY, and I went into the CEO boot camp that is no longer a thing, but it was called Launchpad 2X. And it was through that I met a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space. So by the time we launched, there was an article that came out about FRQNCY in Hippopotamus, which is all about startups. Mm-hmm. And so Coca-Cola did what an amazing thing. This is what Coke does. They want to support women in Atlanta first and foremost. So when they were going to produce their podcast, they went into a Facebook group, and they were like, it was Marketing and Communications Women of Atlanta or something.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, we want to produce a podcast. Anybody know anybody? And like 4 people were like, FRQNCY Media, Michelle, FRQNCY Media. And so the connection was made. And then it was time to actually like pitch the business and get the business. But that's how they came to us. And, you know, right after Coca-Cola, it was literally like Coca-Cola. Then we had somebody come to us about a podcast for Apple and the Statue of Liberty Foundation. Diane Von Furstenburg was the narrator. So I was sitting with her in New York, you know, executive producing that session. And she was like, I want somebody to produce my podcast with Spotify. And so I became her producer. It was like this. She's also somebody who supports women in business, especially women of color. She's an incredible supporter. So that's how we, within the first year, we're just like racking up major brands and credits. And honestly, the biggest thing was that through any fear, through any hesitation, I was like, I know I can do this. I just know I can. And I might not know how I'm going to do it.
That's the part.
But I'm going to freaking do it.
I absolutely love that, because I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I feel like I'm not the best leader, or I'm not like doing right in business, because of the fact that sometimes I'm just winging it. Like, it's literally like whenever people are like, did you ever work in radio? Did you ever this? And I'm like, at college, I worked at my radio station. And I worked at our newsletter, our newspaper in college. And I'm like, that's all I had. And I went to school for communication. But I just believe that I could do it.
Hold up, Anna.
What?
I worked at my radio. I worked at my newspaper. And I have a degree in communication. But that's it.
I worked in healthcare for 10 years in revenue at that. I was a numbers cruncher for 10 years.
You love audio and you know how to crunch numbers. Imposter who? What? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Because, like, for me, it's like when I see other people, like, I'm going to be honest, like, when I saw other people, like, launching production companies or who already had them, by the time the idea came to me, everybody had worked in radio. Everybody had like worked at a Sirius XM or iHeart, so on and so forth. And so they had these like massive reach because they had this audience, but also they had the connections already. I started off as an independent creator who launched Black Pod Collective and Black Pod Festival. And I think even now still people see me in a very like independent phase of like, oh, she just does this. And it's like, I don't just do anything. Let's start off there. Like, let me really reel you back in. But it's like, it's that hard thing of recognizing that, wait a minute, I can change as a person. I can grow. My interests can be different. But it's also that fear of, I'm not classically trained, you know? Like, I feel like a person who learned how to dance in the streets and then now I'm in the ballet and they're like, well, I've been dancing since I was 2 with such and such. And I'm like,
yeah, but Anna, you know what I'd say? Stop dancing ballet then. Why do we got to dance ballet? That's the whole thing. When everybody comes from the same background, all we get is this homogenous sort of like landscape of the same old shit. Can I curse?
Oh, 100%,
Great.
baby.
Excellent. Same old shit, man. And it's boring. And that's why you and I are out here with companies that are more colorful, that are doing things differently, and it's harder because everybody who is the same looks at us and goes, they're different.
Okay.
It's harder.
How do you work through that? So
you just go.
But okay, so you know, when they say you're paving the way, like, and it's funny because of the fact that On the independent side, I didn't have this many stipulations to myself because it's independent. It's my money. If I fuck up, I fuck up. But I was the first paid podcast community. Everybody else was doing, free Facebook groups and all this stuff. And I immediately was like, I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And look at where it took me.
Yes.
But I think it's different. Other people are giving me massive amounts of money. Yeah. And so I never want to feel like I'm just like taking people's money and I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do I feel like I'm learning and I make sure I do our best job, hiring the best team, all of those things? Like, yes. But at the same token, like when you're paving a way that nobody else has done before, how do you push yourself to know that you're actually doing this right and feel secure in that?
Oof, sometimes you can't. That's how I feel about Recordical. So, one thing is building a podcast production company, but then when I set out to build Recordical, which is literally first of its kind, when people ask us who our competitors are, and we've done the competitive research, there aren't any. Like,
first and foremost, please tell the people what Recordical is before you, because baby.
Because this is very much a part of this conversation. It's very important. So Recordical is a first of its kind membership platform for independent audio creators. It is a monthly membership. It's credits based. So you sign up and you get a bundle of credits every month, depending on your tier. And you can use those credits for three things. Number one, you can book studio time at a Recordical studio, which are self-service and tech driven. Number two, you can use your credits to rent equipment boxes out of smart lockers, also self-service and tech-driven. And number three, you will be a part of the Recordical digital community, which will have separate memberships for if you just don't have a Recordical studio or smart locker nearby. And that digital membership, there will be things like there's free mini courses that are part of the membership, or there will be larger courses and workshops and one-on-one time that you can use credits, like with engineers or different professionals in the audio industry that you can use your credits for. And Recordical is not just for podcasters, it's for every kind of audio creator. Because, and you know this, when you are an audio creator, you're a multi-hyphenate.
Oh, God,
almost 100% of the time.
Oh, God, yes.
So you're not just working with audio, you're not just working with a podcast, you're a streamer, you're a video influencer, you're a DJ, you're a musician, a voice actor. So what I was seeing was, audio creators are not just one thing, and yet we put them into buckets across all these different platforms, and we're saying, in this bucket, you can only be your podcast self, and in this bucket, you can only be your streamer self. And it's but we are the same people, and we're chopping ourselves up and compartmentalizing our own selves to fit into these different platforms and spaces. So Recordical is here to provide the tools, the resources, and the knowledge for every kind of audio creator. We're here to break down those silos.
Y'all. You know how a lot of people say that I don't clearly like rest? 3 different brands, all the things. This woman really, one thing, she gets rest. We have to figure that
sleep.
one out.
Yeah, it's important to sleep.
But even the gumption to go after this. Mm-hmm. Please, because the whole premise of this episode is I really want everybody to stop and think to themselves, when was the last time that you wanted to do something that probably sounded crazy to you?
Yeah.
Sometimes I say, what would Michelle do? I really do.
What's the answer?
Sometimes it's fuck it and go to bed. The other night, it was definitely Michelle would say, fuck it. You haven't gotten any rest. Just go to sleep.
Yes.
Just go to sleep. In the morning, your brain will figure it out.
Yes.
Right now, you are struggling because you are tired.
Yes.
So just stop.
That's what I would say.
I know.
You did good.
Literally. Because it was
and sometimes it's fuck it, meditate.
It was 2 a.m. and I was okay, I can figure this out. And I was Michelle literally just had a whole conversation with me about just sometimes everything don't have to happen today.
It can't.
In my mind, it can.
Yeah, but you know what? Incubation time. We don't honor incubation time enough. And I've been working on Recordical for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And a year of that was incubation time and testing and sort of not sure, this is cool, but it's not right. But it's cool, but it's not right. But it needs more, but I'm going to let it go. 2020 happened. I was I got to do other stuff. And then it just started crystallizing slowly. it has been such a slow, difficult burn. And to tie it back to what we were talking about before I mentioned Recordical, I doubt myself with Recordical every single day. It is the scariest, hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Why is this harder or scarier than Frequency was?
Because it is a tangible product. I am developing a platform. I have put a lot of money into this, a lot of money. And that's Frequency money, right? Because they share the same bank account. And so there are times, you know, we got to a scary point financially where it was like, have I just put Frequency on the line for Recordical? It's like your two kids, you know?
And it's like right now it feels like there's a favorite.
Well, yeah. And then it goes back and forth. And then, but I had a vision, and I had the most important thing about trusting is stop and ask yourself, what am I doing and why am I doing this? Like, what is this for? And what is the strategy? And I did that at the beginning. I fully fleshed out the strategy and the business model, and I worked for months. I got an SBA loan, a sizable one, last year. The SBA will nitpick everything about your business model. And so I had to have it all together. I had to know every answer. I had to know every single piece of this business back and forth and really ask myself, is this viable? I had to be real about it. So frankly, in the hardest moments, I've done so much vetting and so much strategic thinking about this model that I'm like, it's there. This is just the muckety muck. It's like really hard to see that it's there. Just keep going.
I love that because I feel like the big thing that you just said that a lot of people do not do and don't pay attention to is the research phase. Mm-hmm. It's the time to understand the audience. It's the time to understand the market. It's the time to understand what you're actually offering and putting out to the world. Yes. And I love that you've actually taken the time to say, okay, this is what this looks like. This is what this entails, and that background. Yes. But even with all that research and the money, how are you not afraid?
I'm terrified.
She said, girl, I didn't say I wasn't afraid. When did I tell you that? Like, did you miss that? Like, I thought it was clear.
Anna, I'm so scared. But I also, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. I fully identify as one now, you know, because it's exhilarating. I don't know how to live my life any other way. I could have just been like, Frequency is doing great. This is good enough, but I don't know good enough. And so I'm the kind of personality, and not everybody is, and you got to know yourself. You got to know yourself. I'm the kind of personality that like can handle the terrifying nature of things. I attribute this to being Colombian because literally, like, I have family members who've been kidnapped.
Girl, like, don't laugh after that. That's weird.
No, I'm laughing because it's like, it sounds bonkers. But like, we are raised with such a healthy paranoia. We're raised to deal with fear, like physical, bodily harm kind of fear. And once you know how to deal with that,
everything
there's kind of nothing else that's like, and so here's how I really deal with my fear because I'm a Virgo. So this might not be a good exercise for everybody, especially those with high anxiety. But for me, I imagine the very worst case scenario.
Oh my God, I do the same thing.
Right? And then I plan for it.
Oh, that's not what I do.
So I'm like, what are like 5 versions of the worst thing that could happen? And then I build my life around how to accommodate a plan for it. So
I like your approach much better.
Right? It's good. Because then it's like,
yours is better.
Yeah.
Mine is definitely.
You spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just caused me to like not sleep and then start focusing
Correct.
on it. But then I start writing out like, okay, so if this happens then this, if this happens then this, if this happens then this. And then finally, I think when my brain gets tired, I say, well, you know what? If all goes to hell, sell all this shit and you'd be rich because this place is fucking expensive.
Yes. No, but you do plan for it then.
Oh, okay.
But you want to intentionally
I don't know if I like the plan. I don't like the plan of selling everything and going
Let me tell you something. I don't love the idea of failing. No, it's not great. I'm not like, ooh, that will be so fun when everything goes to shit. No, but I'm like, but I'll be okay. And I'll go teach, I'll teach English in Korea or something.
You want to know, like, sometimes what actually like gives me comfort is the fact that in healthcare, I made it up to like, I was up to up to manager. I was working my way to director status. I was making a ridiculous amount of money.
I'm sure.
Like a ridiculous amount of money. And I still keep all of my certifications up to date. So,
Wow.
because that's my backup plan. Because
You're
like, if this shit
planning.
goes to hell, I'm like, well, I'm coming back. Goodbye, guys. Gotta go. And so, but sometimes I wonder, is that me operating from a place of fear? Like keeping these certifications and still like with this like notion of like, well, if this shit goes to hell, I can just go back to corporate. Will I go back begrudgingly? Hell yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I will go because I will not be homeless. That's not an option.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes my question is us planning for failure? Can that sometimes be us bringing failure to life?
Sometimes. I think there's a fine line. So for me, I make it like I'm going to be okay no matter what. And then I don't let that get into my brain. So I have found myself thinking a little bit too much about that. And so you have to like reel yourself in and continue to imagine the greatest vision, the greatest version of the vision. So yeah, I think it's a practice in mindfulness, like all things are. And like all things, moderation. But how do you get through the fear? You have to confront it. Like I'm about looking at the monster under the bed. Like get that monster out from under the bed and look them in the eye. And all of a sudden they're not a monster anymore. Yeah, you like hiding under the covers?
100%.
Well, you shouldn't. Because turns out you could be a monster too.
Ooh.
You could scare the monster.
Let me find out. I got big monster energy.
No, you do.
Oh, no.
You do have big monster energy. Yeah. I do too. I'm the sweetest little monster you've ever met.
I'm not sweet.
I'll bring the whole world down.
Yeah.
Oh, I am.
I will set those cell phones on
and that's
fire.
the whole thing.
I'm crazy.
That goes back exactly. And you kind of there's a little strategy of being like the one who's willing to go furthest in the room without anybody realizing you're that person. But I will tell you, it is hard being different in this industry. Podcasting has not received Recordical the way I thought they would. And I think that's in part because I don't participate in the industry the way that they want you to.
So let's
Looks
touch.
like that's resonating for you.
100%. Mm-hmm. Let's touch on that because when you say not, when I think of frequency, to me, like you're so big. And I don't even think of you as an entrepreneur. I think of you as a corporation.
Wow.
And so, but I also don't see you at the podcast movements, at the conferences, at, all these things. And honestly, I don't think you need to be in those spaces, but this industry very much so is a space where you have to play the game, it feels.
Yeah.
Like you have to do the things.
You don't have to.
Well, you don't have to. You're more than welcome to do it your way.
Yeah.
But whenever you start going into the space of like community or
Yes.
like for Adode Media, if I didn't have Black Pod Collective and Black Pod Festival, I could genuinely be myself, which is slightly grumpy and just in my own little world. Like, I can be like a grumpy old lady. More like a grumpy baby, actually, because I'm kind of all over the place, too. And I get a little fussy. And so it's one of those things where if I didn't have those brands, I could really just seclude into my own little world of not, like, having to do the things and, like, show up in the way. But because I have those things, like, I have to do a little bit more, which can be exhausting. Yeah. But that's never been you.
No, it's never been me. It's because I'm to my core a business person. And so it's really just what is the ROI of me taking my time away from building the business to go to these conferences. And these conferences in the podcast industry are geared toward independent creators. So you're about to see Recordical everywhere, but it won't be me. It will be my team going, which is great because they're better at that stuff. I'm good in smaller, more intimate and like intentional spaces.
I can see that.
So that's definitely, we're going to start creating some of those intentional spaces because I want to bring leaders in the audio industry together so that we can start like learning from each other and building together. I'm really excited about that. But conferences, they're geared toward the independent creators. So for me to take time away from building my branded podcast production company to go to these places where my target customer is not and spend money and take time, which is money, like, what am I doing here? How am I supposed to actually grow and be successful? So it's an interesting thing because I know that feels to our podcasting community like I'm not honoring it, when in fact they're not honoring what I need to go through to build my business. So I decided a long time ago, and I love a lot of people in this industry, but I'm just never the person who's going to prioritize being seen over building. Ever. And my team has a problem with that, by the way.
I was gonna say, like, I can see from as a founder, that sounded like there was a part of my spirit that was like, ooh, that sounds nice. Mm-hmm. But as the marketing strategist side of me is like, ooh, girl, that's a bad idea. What are you doing? You can't do that. And so it's this conundrum, like, especially as a person who's building. Yep. You know, thankfully you do have a team. Mm-hmm. But let's kind of walk it back a little bit. Like, in building this powerhouse, honestly, like from the branding to your clients, how did you determine that these were the type of clients you wanted? Mm-hmm. Like, so many people start off, like, I remember when I first started, people were like, you should be working with independent creators. I was like, they don't have any money. What are you saying? Yeah. Why would I do that? Yeah. And I'm like, you know, there could be a branch, like the studio can be where they can come. This is a space for them. It's fairly affordable. That's subjective. It's fairly affordable. But as far as like who we produce shows for, we want to work with organizations and those type of things. And I remember it was this whole like, but independent creators need support too. Mm-hmm. So like, how did you determine that you wanted to go for not just the mid-tier brands? Mm-hmm. Like, you're going for the big babies.
Yes, the big babies. How did I determine that? That was always the vision. That was like, I came from a background of working in big corporations for big brands, and I knew how to deal with them. Like, I know how those
talk the lingo.
Not just the lingo, but like how it works. Mm-hmm. It's so specific. How a mega corporation works is so specific. So I could really speak to them in a way of like, for instance, Coca-Cola, that was a podcast for employees. So like an internal podcast made external. And, you know, I worked in internal communications in a major corporation. So the internal comms team and I understood each other. I understood what an employee pulse survey was. Like, I understood how they leverage those. So I can speak that language, and I can speak to brands in that way. The other thing is I did a stint in the music industry. I was an intern for the head of A&R for Interscope Records, and I was just around celebrities. I was around famous artists, and it was a place of business. So that allowed me to be able to just like become buddies with Jane Goodall, because I just see her as an exceptional person, but a person nonetheless. She's a human being. Mm-hmm. And that gives you the empowerment to sit across from Diane Von Furstenburg and be like, that wasn't quite the right take. We need to do that again, you know? So that just was always the vibe. I also, the most intentional thing I did too was decide to create a company that was a work for hire company and not an original content house. So at the time,
it still is.
It's still,
I know where you're going. Okay, sorry.
But at the time, people were getting millions in those next couple of years for original content. And I'm a business model nerd. Like, one of my favorite podcasts is Masters of Scale. I learned so much about scaling from that podcast. So thank you, Reid Hoffman and the team at Wait What Media. Such a good podcast. But yeah, part of that was like analyzing that business model of original content and being like, wait, how is this going to work?
Oh God. So you guys, for those who may not be familiar, a lot of podcast production houses start off with original shows. And by original shows, it's like they own it. It's their ideas. It's not a client or something of that nature. It's them getting to bring their ideas to the world. So in essence, like how I do the Podcast Trapper, this is an original show in that the
intellectual property is yours.
Is mine. You know, it belongs to me. This is my thing. I get to control it. Whereas with clients, when they bring, like, most clients come to us and they have an idea, they have deliverables, goals, return on investment. Like, there is a whole thing. They don't just get on a mic and start talking. There's a process. that's different. So a lot of production houses are typically just creating original shows. And I think before this recession, and I do air quotes because I'm waiting for the text message that tells me that I'm in a recession, because I assume that's what I'm waiting for it to be announced.
Nope.
Because at this point, and what's going on in the podcast space, I think a lot of people who started off on this original show tip of like, oh, they're going to give me all this funding and ad dollars and all of those things, but I don't think they diversified it. They didn't think that, okay, maybe I should also do this other side. And I'm starting to see a lot more people now do what we're doing.
There's more competition for what we do than ever before because of that. And the thing is, a lot of the original content model is not just creating a network for ads. It's also creating shows that you can license, that you can turn into TV shows and movies. That's like many years. If you ever actually hit one, you have to create like a slate of 20 potential shows to potentially hit one, and it takes years. Unless you have the contacts, which, you know, Antica Productions out of Canada is wonderful, and he comes from a TV production background. So he's got the in, and he's able to fast track licensing for original shows. And that's the way to do it. That's when you create an originals concept. And they also do branded production because you got to supplement. You got to supplement the longer turnaround times with your return on your investment. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot more people enter this space. I'm seeing just a huge burst in the amount of money that was going out to the podcast industry in terms of investments and VC funding, venture capital funding. There was just millions and millions being thrown about. I think the best example of this, now I'm getting nerdy about business, but best example of this was Clubhouse and how they reached a $1 billion valuation when they were in a private beta, a $1 billion value. So yes, we're in a recession, and part of the reason we're in this recession is because way too much money was being thrown around haphazardly for way too long. And the podcast industry saw some of that.
But no, like, I think as an industry, like, what you're building, because recently my dad said, stop saying what you've built. You're not done. There's more to it. But as a person who likes to build and all the things, like I want more people to hear, like, how did you do this? So I heard you got an SBA loan for Recordical, but on the frequency side, it seems like you were networking and kind of going out there. And I'm a big proponent for going to in-person things. Like I don't like this digital space. I'm really over Zoom. I'm tired. I don't want to Zoom you. I don't want to Zoom date. I don't want to Zoom meeting. I don't want to Zoom anything. I don't want to log into the damn platform anymore. But
Google Meet.
She's like, let me give you another option that can help with this process, just to give you a break.
Google Meet is yay. Zoom is like,
I'm tired.
Microsoft Teams is like,
God no.
Eighth circle of hell.
But no, like,
but we'll work with you, Microsoft.
I was like, let's be clear. But we will
hate Microsoft Teams, but it sounds like you need a podcast to like remedy this. And who better than the person who hates you most?
But no, like, ultimately, you've been able to scale this from networking and everything else in between. But like, what were the scruffy days? Like, before you had Coca-Cola, I think people like to see, I always say, like, most people, once you discover me, it's after I've done something big. So when I was doing the small little things to do that something big, you weren't there. So it looks like I just popped up one day and opened a studio. Like, it's the number one thing. And I'm like, no, I worked 2 jobs for 2 years, nights and weekends. Like, please, this was not easy.
No.
And so what was that for you? Before you got to Coca-Cola, before you got to where, like, people actually knew your name, what was that process in building this?
Well, Coca-Cola came so quickly that there's very little nitty gritty other than
you launched the website and they came. That's what it sounds like. She's like, I launched my website and Coca-Cola was like, hey, what it do, babe?
Sort of. So, sort of, truly. But it was because of connections I'd made in my previous job. So when I moved to Atlanta, I became the PR manager at the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. Okay. And so I had to hit the pavement, meet journalists of all kinds, tell them about Atlanta's story, past, present, and future, know about all the developments. I had to get to know a lot of the area attraction CEOs. So I knew a lot of people from that. And then from that, I became the editor of Where Atlanta magazine, which is in all the hotels. So I was a magazine editor and for Atlanta and Nashville, funny enough. So I had to know as many people as I could in hospitality. So I knew a lot of people. And then I quit that to start Cultured Podcast, and sort of the rest unfolded. Now, when I say the rest unfolded, specifically regarding frequency, once I knew I wanted to be in the podcast space, like in a bigger way than just having my own podcast, which I loved having. And I'm going to have another one soon.
Ooh, I hope I can be a guest.
No. You're going to be a guest for sure. You want to be a host? To become one.
I'm with it. Say less.
You were supposed to be creeped out by that. Now I'm creeped
Not
out
at
that you
all.
weren't creeped out. No.
Don't tease me with a good time.
Okay. I digress. So anyway, podcast. So I knew I wanted to be in the podcast space, so I started doing the research. So exactly what I did with Recordical, I did with Frequency. I looked into the space. I saw what was being done. I did a competitive analysis of the companies that were out there. It's crazy to look back at that because holy moly has it changed in less than 5 years, or actually at this point 5 years, since when I was planning. Then get this, I did a focus group. Mm-hmm.
Not enough people do that.
Nope. And I asked, because my original vision for Frequency actually was like Recordical. My original vision for Frequency was I wanted to create a headquarters in Atlanta. And I wanted it to be a membership, like a co-working space, but just for podcasters and audio creators. And so the Recordical really, the seed of Recordical is early days of Frequency. So my focus group was more about that model.
Okay.
And that's where I got to know a lot of different people. I mean, I knew a lot of the people in that focus group, but got some great feedback about demand. And then I built out what's called a pro forma. So that's the financial model for the business. And because it had a membership, it was more than just a work for hire company. I started networking with a lot of entrepreneurs who would then connect me with potential investors because I wanted to bring on an investor to start the original model, which again included this headquarters. Every investor I talked to was like, wow, this is so impressive. Holy moly, you've done something amazing. No, thank you. Way too much overhead. Why would you build a building? A lease? You crazy. And I was like, 10-4.
Okay, thank you so much.
10-4.
Appreciate you so much.
And that's actually how Frequency, I was like, clearly, okay, here's the thing. Can't have ego in this game. Man. You cannot have, I told you this, you cannot have ego in this game because people are going to tell you, that's stupid. That's a stupid idea. And
I'm going to say,
yeah, you're going to say that. And I'm going to be like, that's unkind. That's unkind. And I'm going to take what resonates and then leave the rest. Because you don't know me, that's what I'm going to do. And then that's what I do. I'm like, okay, they came at it a weird way. That must be their hurt.
That's so nice of you. A weird way. Yeah. I immediately go into, and they tried me, Matthew. Can you believe this nonsense? We're going to prove them all wrong and burn them to the ground. And he's just like, I think she's upset right now. She'll be fine.
To be fair, I do that too under certain circumstances.
Because I'm like, there are times that I'm like,
yeah, but it takes a lot to push me there because mostly I'm like, sounds like someone hurt you, but also you might be right. So I get introspective when repeatedly investors are like, you're incredible, this is incredible, because again they're like boosting me up, but then saying, nah, this isn't viable for us to be able to put money in. So I'm like, okay, let me check out the viability of this. So I was like, in the meantime, we're going to launch and just make branded podcasts, and we're going to do that. And so those are the steps. I guess what I'm trying to get at is you got to pivot. You got to be nimble. You have your vision, and it might change, but start finding what I like to call what is called the minimum viable product. What is that MVP? And for me, the MVP that I could start immediately that I knew was going to work was a branded podcast production company. So now you can kind of see that for 5 years, Recordical has kind of been in the works, but actively for 3 years. And that is what has led me. It's just doing the work step by step. It's just doing the work. And it is tuning into your gut because
there are no shortcuts.
There are no shortcuts. And there are 1,000 ways to do, infinite ways to do something. infinite.
That's an understatement. That's an understatement because it really is, because it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes I'm like, am I doing the right thing? And then I have to remind myself there is no right or wrong. As long as nobody dies and I don't go bankrupt, I think we'll figure it out, you know?
Or no one's exploited.
That too. That's important. Let's add that to the list. I'll add that to my checklist.
That's important, yeah. Post-capitalism.
Good catch. Good catch. But like overall, I think when we're kind of like what you're doing with Recordical, it sounds like it's been in the works for the longest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this isn't something that you just woke up one day. And I think, you know, when other people find out about our visions, it feels like, oh, you just thought about this. And it's like, you don't actually know me in real life, just as a reminder. And so now that you're building towards this, what are your dreams and your vision for Recordical? Because this is your next baby.
I have big dreams for both Frequency and Recordical. I want Frequency to have global offices. I want us to be able to serve podcast production clients around the world. So I want to open up satellite teams in different regions that we've identified are really great for podcasting and ready for us to come. And I want to stand up local teams so that it's like teams of those regions doing the work. That's the Frequency vision. And on the Recordical side, I want to build out Recordical studios around the world as well, starting with the US. And I want to put Recordical smart lockers around the world, starting with the US, and be able to roll out the digital membership to our global community of audio creators. So right now we have a pilot studio here in downtown Atlanta. And by the end of this month, actually, you're the first to know. Okay, by the end of June, so whatever this comes out, but by the end of June, we're going to have 3 smart lockers installed in Atlanta and available. So our membership is coming soon. The biggest thing we need is support in helping to build out these studios. We can partner with developers, co-working spaces, airports, hotels, and then independent creators can join the wait list to see where we should roll out a studio next.
So if I'm a listener and I'm like, I love this woman, because I'm sure that they will. Because I love you
too, listener.
And she serenades us? Oh, my God.
That's right.
You should just come be here with me.
Te amo, te quiero.
But no, Matthew speaks Spanish. That's why he's like,
he's over here giggling.
He's like, we're friends. But no, like if a person is listening and they're like, oh my goodness, I want to support, what would be 3 things? Because I feel like we should, as women who are as strong as we are, we have a bad time of asking for what is it that we want the most. So if I'm somebody who's listening and I said, oh my God, I love this woman and I want to help her, what are 3 things that would be of utmost benefit to you right now?
First of all, thank you. So the 3 things would be follow Recordical on social media, because we have a lot coming, and that's the best way to stay in tune. And number 2, sign up for our wait list at Recordical. That's like practical, reasonable. It's like whimsical. So it's record, ICAL, recordical.com/waitlist. That's number 2. Sign up for the wait list. And number 3, sign up for Audio Currents, which is our newsletter. And that's really for both of us. That's really if you want to support us, but if you also want to know about the audio industry across all verticals across the world, there's some really good content that comes through, written by Shreya Sharma, who I love, twice a week. So those are the 3 things.
My last thing to you would be, for somebody who's looking, and this is for myself, okay? So, you know, best of luck to y'all. For somebody who's looking to follow in your footsteps in a different way, because I'm not trying to be with the big dogs. I want to be with these people right here feels right.
Yes, yes.
You up here, right here.
That's perfect.
Yeah, this feels good. What's 4? Yeah, I'm giving you 4. Yeah.
Okay.
4 pieces of advice that you have for someone who's looking to, whether it's myself or one of our listeners, who's looking to build in the way you've built, and attract brands and work with companies and just scale and build a production house. What are 4 pieces of advice that you would have?
I got you.
Ooh, and this
Number
is on the spot,
one,
and she knows already.
No, I know.
That means you should have been told me this. Like, what do you mean? Like,
I probably have. Hi, welcome to redundancy. Number one, let go of ego. Pride is not your friend. Ego is not your friend. Ego makes you over-identify with your business, over-identify with your goals. And when you need to pivot and be nimble, and when you need to really, really look at what is working and what is not, ego can be your worst enemy. Pride can be your worst enemy. You got to put that down and allow yourself to see what is actually happening so that you can respond in kind. So that's number one. Number two, forget the term imposter syndrome. Forget it. Just eliminate it from your mind. Don't tell yourself, oh, I'm feeling such imposter syndrome right now. Forget it. Fuck that term. That's some patriarchal bullshit. We don't say that about men. We don't say that about men. So fuck that. You're not an imposter. I don't even know what that word is anymore. Wipe it. Cheek, cheek, Men in Black.
I think she just actually wiped it from all of your memories, so you're probably not even remembering what we're talking about
You don't
right
even
now.
know what's happening. Number two. That's number two. Number three, like, do what you love. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're not doing the right thing. You're in your ego. You're doing things for your ego. If you are not feeling fulfilled at least 80% of the time by what you're doing, it's not the right thing. And let me tell you something. I am sitting here as I'm experiencing for the last year the hardest time I've ever experienced as a business owner and an entrepreneur. It is difficult. I feel tired. It has been hard, but I am so revved.
It's weird. I sometimes feel like my business is like cocaine for me.
It is.
Because I'm like, what? I haven't slept in
compulsion.
days. And I'm over here like, I am ready. It's like, what is wrong with me?
That means you're aligned with your purpose. And none of us are on this planet to be in misalignment. That's crazy to think about, right? Like, how does the entire cosmos function if not by aligned gravitational forces? So stop being out of your gravitational force if you're not in it. And yeah, it's hard, but reevaluate it. Love what you do. It's not worth it if not. Number four.
This is what I said for.
Sleep.
Oh, come on.
Boom.
Come on. I don't accept that one. Give me another.
Meditate. Sleep and meditate. Rest your mind. Rest your spirit. Okay, I'll give you a real fourth one that I haven't given you before. Although now that's 6. We're counting, right? So number 6. No, because really sleep and meditate. But fourth one for real is oh shoot. Did it just leave my brain? No, I had a really good one. No, don't look at me. No, don't do that sound. You know I attached to audio. Shoot, it was a good one too.
Why she thinks through the ego one, because we're leaving this in.
There was something about ego.
I love what you said about ego because I twinged. Like, there's a word you said, and I was like, oh. I was like, oh, wait, maybe. Around ego, like, I always talk about how, like, I never did an opening event for the studio because I was nervous. Like, what if it failed and it didn't do good? Like, we're 2 years in, but that's not the point. And I was like, okay, what if it failed? What if it didn't do well? This way I could close out and nobody would know it. And I was talking to my cousin. Yeah, because in my head that made sense. I was talking to my cousin. He was like, so when you move into the new space, are you doing the opening? And I was like, He's like, I mean, at this point, people know you have a studio. Like, if you didn't have a studio anymore, people would notice whether you do this opening or not. Yeah. And he's like, why are you letting your ego get cut up in this? And it made me realize, like, I've tied so much of myself and what I do into my business. It, like, fuels me. It fuels my life. Like, it gives me joy. But at the same token, I think I've tied too much of myself to this business because if this business fails, I am not a failure. I am still amazing.
Okay, it's like we literally just had ESP because I remembered what I was going to say, and it was literally that. Like, it was literally don't over-identify, truly, because you're just one of my favorite concepts of, like, quantum concepts is this idea that the universe, the things around us only happen when we are observing them. They're only in existence when we are observing them. So it's kind of like how there's an infinite number of songs or sounds, but only until you pick a song and play it does it actually exist in that moment, right?
True.
So you are here to just observe. That is what we're all here to do, observe. That means I'm not here to be an entrepreneur. I'm not here to be a business owner. I'm just like a being. I'm just here to be.
But I require bills that be paid, and
well,
I like food
you can
a lot.
pay those. Well, yeah, I get it. It's relatable. We have to eat. Unfortunately, I really would do like a Gwyneth Paltrow, like IV and arm, if it could have like actual nutrients and not just like be like,
what are you talking about?
A vitamin. Oh, you never saw that? It's fine.
Oh, I was like, Gwyneth Paltrow.
Y'all who saw that, you know.
IV and arm. What?
Bone broth?
Bone broth? This is what this woman lives off of?
You guys get it. Yes.
Oh, God, no.
So anyway, I'm not here to critique
quit.
anybody's
no,
eating
everybody
habits,
here would
but
quit. I get hangry.
I know.
Everybody would
I'm
leave.
like there. I'm like, I need to eat. But okay, but truly, don't over-identify because you are not the thing you do. You are not the thing you do. You are not the thing you do. You just are. And that is a really hard concept to get around in like very capitalistic, patriarchal United States of America. It's very hard. And that's why meditation actually is like a really important strategy because when I meditate, I like to imagine myself as just like a bunch of molecules. We're getting deep, okay?
I was like, wait a minute. The Virgo in you is so strong and your astrology is kicking in on overtime. What is happening?
A bunch of molecules.
I fall asleep whenever I try to
Because
meditate.
if I'm a bunch of molecules, then molecules don't care if they're an entrepreneur or not. You know what I mean?
You don't know that.
I do because I'm a bunch of molecules. Me. Anyway, don't over-identify. And that is a practice. It's actually kind of ties into this planning for the worst case scenario because I can show myself that I could literally be an English teacher in Korea or, OnlyFans superstar.
You know what? I've looked at my feet. I'm like, I keep a nice pedicure. Sure.
Yo, those are some money makers.
I think I could.
Those are some money makers.
Hey, Adode Media fall through. Me and these feet.
Today Media.
Okay, come on. Business partner already.
Todayfedia. Anyway, that's it for today.
All right. So what are, like, for anybody who wants to follow you, support you, see what your amazing team is doing, because I know you guys are consistently putting out that hot fire. How can they do that?
You can follow FRQNCY Media on all the socials. And, take a look. You can go to frqncy.media. That's FRQNCY. Very millennial. No vowels except for Y. If you count Y as a vowel, which if you do, it's like, what are you doing? But anyway, FRQNCY.media, not Fedia. And you can look at our work there and just find a podcast that resonates with you. We have a lot of narrative shows. We have some really great interview format shows. We just launched What's In with Olaplex. That's a really great one. It's an interview format. Daniel Frank, the host, is so personable. And it's all about, dispelling this need to be on trend and embracing who you are instead. Another one I love is Valeria Lipovetsky's, and that one's called Not Alone, and it's narrative, and it's just really deeply personal and moving and relatable, especially for women. So, yeah, find a show you like and listen.
If you guys haven't picked up on the fact that I know Michelle in real life, and this is just our dynamic duo, love her to death. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to come on a Saturday in this hot ass studio. To be, I'm so happy you feel that way.
Ice cold.
Oh, okay. To be here to speak about the work that you do, because I will say this till I'm blue in the face. There are not that many people in this industry that I genuinely look up to.
Thank you.
But the work that you do and the way that you show up in excellence, like people say, "Oh, Anna, you're so type A and you do too much." And sometimes I want to say, "Baby, you just don't do enough." And the too much that you do and then some lets me know that I'm operating in my excellence. And so I want to make sure I give you your flowers for trotting through, because I know entrepreneurship is not easy, and
Yeah.
some days you're like, am I doing any of this right? And so
A lot of
I want
days.
you to know that I'm super proud of you, and congratulations on launching Recordical. And for those who are interested in learning more about her, please know that all of the details will be in the show notes. So please link, but also share it. She didn't say this piece, but I'm saying this piece. Share this with somebody you know that could use this information. I believe that as a community and as a network, we can be the ones to support each other. We don't need the industry.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need anybody else. So if you put it in your podcast, if you put it in your own show notes that, hey, this new thing has launched, let people know about Recordical, because it's about to be a game changer, and you want to make sure that you got in on the ground level. So, as always, thank you guys for tuning in to the Podcast Trapper. I'm your host, Ana Agogo, and you can follow me on all things Ana Agogo, O-N-A, and hey, look at the show notes. Until next time, guys, you guys have a good one, and keep trapping out the window.